Soul Hackers 2 is really frustrating. On one hand, it looks incredible, has a fun cast of characters, and fantastic combat. On the other hand, there's so many odd design decisions that drag down what should have been a way better game. In Soul Hackers 2, you play as Ringo, a supernatural Aeon being who's been created and sent to Earth to prevent a cataclysmic event. You also have a partner that's been created called Feig. Now, she's not exactly a party member, she takes on more of a guide role. Think of Rise or Futaba from the Persona series. The actual story doesn't pull any punches, starting off with some pretty shocking moments that, of course, I won't spoil. The game takes the Soul Hacker name pretty literally, as Ringo hacks into all the different characters' souls in your party and they are linked to her. Now, the team is united in trying to collect covenants, sort of the MacGuffin for this game. These items are what would be used to bring upon a cataclysmic event, and they're basically the driving force for the story. Now, while the cast is relatively small, it's really fun and distinct. Ringo is naive yet bubbly considering she was just created. Melody, for example, is a bit standoffish, but also has a vulnerable side that she lets down every once in a while. You also have a variety of ways to get to know about your party outside of the main story. When you go back to your base to heal up, you can share a meal together and you'll get a little more insight into your characters. You can also share a drink together at a bar, and this can be just one character or sometimes all of them together. All the different characters are also pretty well acted, and they're from actors and actresses you would probably recognize in other JRPGs. And while it's not Yuri Lowenthal, Arrow sounds exactly like Yosuke from Persona 4.
Covenants are like a big source of energy, and they've been passed down from soul to soul for generations.
The story was actually pretty fantastic. It starts off with a bang, has a great cast of characters, and constantly finds ways to keep you engaged. I honestly wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but hey, credit where credit's due. Despite what it might look like in trailers, let's get one thing straight. Soul Hackers 2 is a dungeon crawler and not much else. Sure, you can walk around the city, but the areas are all pretty small. There's not much room to explore, and the variety of side quests are not that diverse. Most of your time will be spent exploring dungeons. Now, in the game, there are two types of dungeons, the Soul Matrix and the core story dungeons. The Soul Matrix dungeons are more character-centric. Now, as you explore further, you'll get to know about each character further and also unlock new abilities for them. Now, while it is totally worth it to explore these dungeons, they're also so boring and very plainly designed. They all look like this that you're seeing on screen now, and there's no unique twist or mechanic to it at all. You'll just be slowly running around, fighting monsters, and opening chests. And I do mean slowly walking around, as there's no run button as far as I could tell. This game really could have used a run button to make exploring these dungeons a little bit faster. Now, my recommendation would be to just get all the trash enemies out of the way, not fight them, just kind of knock them down and run to the boss, because those upgrades for your characters are really helpful. As for the story dungeons, they're not much better. Sure, they are themed, but they have that same boring design. It's like they were designed on graph paper and the designers were like, yep, we're done, not much further than that. This was by far my biggest disappointment. I totally understand that this was a different team from Persona, but did they learn nothing from one another? Now, while this is the same team that made Tokyo Mirage Sessions and the dungeons aren't great there either, they are much better than this. One really annoying thing when exploring is that Feig will shout out when enemies are nearby. It seems like it would be helpful, but after a while it just feels patronizing. It's like, yeah, I have eyes, I can see the demon, it's right there. It feels more annoying than helpful. Now, this is going to sound a little contradictory, but weirdly enough, when I realized what this game was, the dungeons went from boring to kind of relaxing. I would just explore them fully, get all the different items, collect all the different demons, level up and grind, and get to the next story beat. And what really helps this is the combat, and it's fantastic. It's essentially what you'd find in Persona or other SMT games. You're trying to find enemy weaknesses either with your weapons or with your summoned demons you use to attack. Now, instead of all-out attacks, what happens here is that each time you do an attack that hits an enemy weakness, a stack number will increase. And the higher the stack, the stronger the attack at the end of the turn. Now, some demons like Jack Frost can supplement this attack by healing your party at the same time, and it will correspondingly increase depending on that stack number. Now, some of the main differences from Persona is that the teammates aren't locked to one demon. They can be changed. In fact, they can be changed in the middle of a fight. The other thing that's really nice is that if Ringo dies, it's not game over. Battles will continue and you can revive her. Also, you can sort of speed up the battles. If you turn on auto attack during the enemy's turn, their turn will go a lot faster and it'll get back to your turn. Obviously, you can't just leave it on if you want to have any kind of strategy back on your turn. You'll have to turn off auto attack and it'll just be normal speed. I have to say, I love this battle system. It's fast, strategic, yet really engaging. It never got boring for me. The other big aspect of SMT-like battle systems is experimenting with demons and fusing them together. You pretty much find them just while you explore. and these negotiations aren't nearly as stringent as they are in Shin Megami Tensei. They're pretty easy. You almost always have the items, money, or whatever they need. Now, there is a circus-like area where you can combine the demons and make new ones. There's also side quests that are offered here, and it's pretty much bringing certain demons to the guy that runs it. Eventually, you do unlock three-way fusions to create even more powerful demons. And speaking of side quests, let's talk about Club Cretaceous. Here you'll be offered side quests, and mainly it's either finding items or killing a certain number of enemies. To be honest, these are the most basic and uninteresting side quests you could possibly imagine. They are good for grinding XP or money though, so if you're trying to grind and a certain boss is just too tough, doing a couple side quests might be helpful. Overall, the gameplay isn't bad, it's just not that deep. In the shadow of Persona 5, we've just come to expect more. A straight-up dungeon crawler in 2022 just doesn't cut it anymore, at least in my book, especially when you strip out pieces and sell them as day one DLC. Ironically, it seems like Atlus has sort of become a victim of its own success. Got no one to blame but yourself there, guys. One area where Soul Hackers 2 absolutely shines is in the presentation department. Overall, the look is super stylized and saturated with tons of color. The city itself looks incredible, as do the characters and demons. The art department absolutely knocked it out of the park here. And this next piece, while it's not the biggest deal, it does bother me a lot. While you're exploring the city itself, you can't control the camera, it's kind of on rails and it feels limiting. And while these areas aren't huge, it would have made them feel bigger if we could swing around and control the camera. And speaking of the camera, before launch, it was way too tight in dungeons. I honestly can't believe it got like this. Thankfully, they have patched in the ability to change how far zoomed out the camera is in dungeons. It makes things way more tolerable, and I'm glad the team addressed this so quickly. The soundtrack is also fantastic. It's a great mix of electropop to fit the cyberpunk vibe of the city, as well as some moody tunes to match the dark, dingy feel of the dungeons. There's plenty of great tunes that I found myself listening to outside of the game itself. Soul Hackers 2 is a good game, but it could have been a great one. While the visual styles, story, and combat are all fantastic, the limited exploration and bland dungeons really hold it back. When 70 to 80% of your game is dungeon crawling, they need to be excellent. Now, I have no problem recommending this game, as I'm sure plenty of JRPG fans will enjoy it, but I was really hoping to shout this game's praises from the mountaintops. Here's for a better outing next time. Now, if you're not familiar with Soul Hacker 2's Day 1 DLC, make sure to check out this video here because it's a little bit slimy what's going on. And if you love JRPGs and haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.